Hello, everybody. We're back, and I have a wonderful person here. He's an author of the book "Burnout: God's Recovery Plan." His name is Keith A. Cole. Keith was, a survivor of the Vietnam War, and he has a wonderful perspective on uh, trauma recovery. Is faith centered and talks about restoring relationships after deep hardship. Keith, how you doing? Welcome.
Doing just great, Chris. Thank you very much for
You, well,
having me.
thank you for being here. Now, let's get into the book because I'm very curious about this burnout recovery plan, the book. So, yeah, tell us about it.
Well, it's pretty much I had uh, I served in the Marine Corps
Mm-hmm.
um, as a Marine Corps machine gunner
Mm-hmm.
in the mid '60s, mid to late '60s, and while I was there, I was uh, the whole the trauma that comes from the combat is that in that particular case, it was a night. The nights were full of artillery rounds and different type of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
destruction, death,
Mm-hmm.
and and some of the days as well. But it left a lot of trauma in the years later.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, while I was there, I was wounded on three different occasions,
Mm-hmm.
and finally on the third one was the hospital ship wasn't enough, so I went back to the United States. I spent several months in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I was reassigned duty, uh, it was what's called I&I duty, instructor and inspector. And so we have a compound, but not a base. It's just in different cities throughout the country. And our primary duty of that unit was to train reserves.
Mm-hmm.
And but we also were tasked with notifying next of kin when their loved one was killed or wounded in action.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then we were the honor guard for those fallen Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Now this was honorable duty, but it left its wounds you can't see as well,
Mm-hmm.
also, and and then a lot of trauma from that, and in years to come afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I'm in my I had been on that duty for about a year, and the phone rang, and usually we had a couple phones. One was just from headquarters of the Marine Corps notifying of another casualty,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, but the other telephone was for local calls. And my brother called me and told me my mother was dying,
Mm-hmm.
and and then I became the guardian of my younger brother, got out of the Marines, became the guardian of my younger brother and sister since my dad had died when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the time I was in high school through the Marine Corps, through combat, and after that, uh, on I&I duty, and then my mother died, the whole time there's always death.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that took its toll.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid growing up, my whole plan was to become a Methodist minister.
Mm-hmm.
Then my dad died. My dad was a railroader, a very strong guy. And so, and he died when he was 52 years old.
Mm.
There's no way that this strong, big man could possibly been his fault that he died.
Mm-hmm.
So it only left me to blame God for this.
Oh.
And I became quite rebellious. I became uh, a pretty nasty person. And
Uh-huh.
so after high school graduation, I looked for the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time in the Marine Corps, Vietnam, of course, was going on. I said, good, war, more the better. It, uh, things changed as time went on that type of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But uh, one night in we had just dug in fighting holes, and we had an artillery attack that was humongous, and the rounds were coming over at us from North Vietnam. They were going across the DMZ. We were just uh, within a couple miles of the DMZ,
Mm-hmm.
and it was coming in. And when these artillery rounds hit, it sounds like two freight trains crashing,
Mm.
and so it's quite noisy, and you have no idea where they're going to land. You just
Mm.
know it's not going to be good. And fighting hole next to mine, there were two Marines in it, and they had a direct hit.
Mm.
The At that time, I can tell you, there's an old adage. I think came from World War I. I think says there are no atheists in foxholes.
Mm.
That night, I knew exactly what they were talking about.
Mm.
I was certainly praying that night
Mm.
and asking for the forgiveness for blaming God for my dad's death
Mm-hmm.
and the way I acted since. But the so I tell a little bit about that in the book and that type and some of that trauma. Some few more details in the book about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my mother died, that was a another earth-shaking event, of course. And she had asked me, she had been sick for a while, and so she had asked me if I would be the guardian um, of my younger brother and sister if she dies before they're grown.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I said I would, uh, but I became their guardian. Two young teenagers, and I was only 23, so I was not much more than a kid myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and straight out of the Marine Corps, I may have prayed to God when I was in that fighting hole, but I I was pretty much in kind of being a professional prodigal son because I went wayward more than once.
Mm.
And and so it was quite an event for me to be their guardian. Uh, and so that took some time uh, to sink in, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But from there, I was out of the Marines and uh, started working, and I had to go to college. So, or I wanted to go anyway. And so
Mm.
finally managed to do that. I went through college, took me several years. I was, and I always worked when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And, uh, but then I became a CPA and started a tax practice of my own. And in the tax practice grew nicely and everything was doing pretty good until we came up onto the pandemic.
Mm.
And everybody went home. Nobody wanted to
Oh,
come back.
oh my gosh.
And so the tax season became quite difficult. So I uh, got temporary help that wasn't always work out that great and just created, a whole lot more stress.
Oh my goodness.
And uh, did a lot more drinking,
Mm,
to, adding, to the stress. And the late one night in my office, and I was alone, and uh, I just reached over to the bottom desk drawer where I kept my bottle. I had a swig out of the scotch bottle
hmm
and didn't bother with the glass. I was pretty perturbed at the time.
hmm
And I started to drink again, and I just broke down.
mm,
And Chris, I tell you, Marines don't like to be broke, to admit they're being broken,
yeah.
but I broke. I
Mm,
surrendered, and I surrendered to Jesus Christ.
oh my.
And through that surrender, which didn't that particular instant, it was not like it wasn't Paul on his way to Damascus, right?
Uh-huh.
It wasn't all of a sudden uh, I'm the super nice guy or something.
Mm,
Life didn't change that quickly, but it was the beginning of a recovery. It was the
mm,
beginning of my renewal, uh, and it certainly was my redemption. And so the process of going through this entire process of uh, over all these years and all the trauma and then the recovery from that and the redemption, uh, I decided to write this in the book. And so from all of this, a story came, and I just poured that story into a fictional Marine, Kevin Casey.
mm,
And so everything in the book, all the names I used are fictional,
mm,
but everything I say in the book is true.
mm,
It's 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 my memory, it's my pain, it's my redemption, which is all factual.
mm,
And then in the heart of the book, I have what is called God's recovery plan.
mm,
And so it's a list of 8 different things. So what to go through in the morning in the reading. And so what happens is and it lasts for 12 weeks. So there's it's like 8 steps. And
mm,
it's action, prayer, reading scripture, affirmations, inscribing, which is a gratitude journal, and seeing God's promises, which is a visualization, and exercise and rest. And so each one is an acronym. So each one of those, the first letter of each one makes it work out A, praiser.
mm,
And so with that, there's like a workbook in the back of the book that I've written, Burnout, God's Recovery Plan. Then I also published the workbook separately as well,
oh
uh,
my goodness.
so that going through each one of those steps, and each one of those steps is found is based on scripture.
Mm,
So for 12 weeks, you go every day down the 8 steps each day with a certain Bible verse for each one of the steps.
mm,
And then the second week, the verses change. And it goes for 12 weeks that way.
mm,
So um, it's been interesting because I'm on my uh, eighth time through. I think it's seventh or eighth, and
mm-hmm,
and the I learn something new each time I do that.
mm,
The Bible verses, even though I've read them before, um, they're meaning something new each time I do it.
mm-hmm. That's that's incredible. And I just didn't realize you had written it's a recovery book. It's like an AA, but better in that you're using the scriptures throughout. Um, I love the layout. I used to run an IOP group years ago, about 10 years ago, I did in Virginia, in Appalachia, where they definitely had drug and alcohol. They had moonshine.
No,
you know? So, I don't know how people drink that stuff. I can admit to you that one day I was leaving the house. I was in grad school at the time. And this guy says, "Hey, man, I got some shine here. You want to try some?" And I'm thinking, whatever. That's fine. And I took a sip. I'm talking a sip.
yes, yes.
And my chest caught on fire. Keith, I looked at him and he says, "Do you want another sip?" And I said, "No, thank you." I cannot, I can't handle any more of that. And I thought I could drink. But it was like those people drank that up there like it wasn't nobody's business. And so yeah, I could see it. So I ran a recovery group, but it was like the clinical kind. And it was interesting because at the time I didn't use any biblical stuff and I was new at it and I was learning and so forth, but they take out God pretty much out of the mix. And it was only later, much later, that I started allowing that back in. Um, but I don't know. I had a guy years ago who was a really serious addict. He's from Great Britain. Well, he had dual citizenship. United States, Great Britain. Mom and dad, born in either place. So we had a hard time with that because he was one of those poly substance abusers,
Yeah.
been that since he was, young and dumb and, and in high school, like we all were one time or another. And he just never got off that train, and I started introducing scripture to him. And that was the only thing that helped him,
Oh, good.
you know. It was the only thing that helped him. And so I thought that was interesting. So when you were telling your story, I thought about that guy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, I know people say, because I know in college people drink, and I mean, I went through that bit too. It's just kind of one of those unfortunate rites of passages you go through.
Yes.
And when you're young and dumb and in college, you think nothing can happen. I'm bulletproof. Nothing's going to happen to me. But did you have any challenges during, this process of recovery and implementing God's plan? Yeah. after you surrendered? Was it like any kind of cat and dog fighting going on in your head about, the
Only
recovery piece, or what was it?
only daily.
No.
Uh, yeah,
Oh.
a, a sizable amount of that.
Hmm.
Uh, it's I I I mean today. I mean, temptations are great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the uh, I just all for that. What I try to do, I almost said I always do, but that's far from truth.
that's
But what I try to do is what when I catch myself on the wrong thoughts, going the wrong direction,
it.
um, I look for a Bible verse.
That's it. I like that.
You know, the I I just need to just put one little word in there about moonshine,
Uh-huh.
and that is in 1970, in my last year in the Marine Corps, I had uh, some moonshine.
Oh my goodness.
So we had another Marines, had a girlfriend there, and we went to her parents' house, and he made it.
Mm.
Uh, and I think it was maybe 2 days ago, my throat quit burning. That was nasty.
Oh man. I don't know how. I guess you can get used to anything,
Woo.
you know? And you talking about clearing up any sinus. I mean, that thing is that he's hardcore, man.
Yeah, that was hardcore stuff, that's for sure. You know,
That but you're talking about, I always thought we used to call it liquid courage, and so uh, even in college when I saw people drunk, and not that I didn't get drunk because I did my bit of rebelling. I have a story too that's crazy, but um, while I was not drunk and taking care of drunk people, I hated it because I people were acting totally different than they normally would, and
yeah,
the,
oh, sure.
and then they don't remember stuff,
Yeah,
and it's like you don't remember that, because you were very, obtuse. You were acting out. You were acting. I didn't do that. Yes, she did.
yeah,
I've got evidence. I know people who can, and it's kind of like one of those things. So to me, it was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to act. You shame yourself, you shame your family, you shame you do all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't normally do under the influence. And did you have any issues with shame in the process of recovery or anything like that? Did that ever come up? Or like,
the in the shame, I think there's several times throughout my life I was ashamed of some of the things that I had done.
mm,
Um, pretty much, pretty much, especially when I was in the Marine Corps,
mm,
right? And time after that too, I guess. But um, while in the Marine Corps, like I said, when we were noted going to parents' house or a young lady's house to tell her husband had been killed,
mm.
uh, you you notify the parents, you talk with them, and then you leave and you go to a bar.
Oh man.
Is pretty much how some of us did it. And and so it was, we might just stay there the rest of the day and
Mm-hmm.
into the night or something. And and so I mean it's just hope you sober up before the funeral. I mean
Mm-hmm.
it was wicked. But the so it left that left an awful lot of uh, strain
Mm-hmm.
and definitely shame.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the service as being a Marine, I'm very proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the problem, right? Not so proud of how I reacted in different cases.
Mm-hmm.
But then I always look back. I mean, I'm the guardian of a younger brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
Over these years, I thought, "Oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that better."
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they hate me though.
Well, you know what they say, we're our own worst critic, you know.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
I think that's true with everybody. Some people may not want to believe it, but we criticize ourselves harder than anybody else.
Mm.
And you know, God just wants us to love him. He loves us unconditionally. And all those things that we're ashamed of that we did, I did a lot of stuff myself. And, you kind of wish they didn't happen. But then if you look at it in another perspective, those are the moments that shaped your life to where you're at now. If you're in a position to say that you went through something and you recovered from it, and it made you better, kind of like you going to war, kind of like you going to, you know, college or anything else that you might experience, positive or negative. You carry those things with you, and hopefully uh, get better because of it. You know, get better through it. Survival stories, I think, are the most important stories that we could tell because they convey a message, and you don't know who you're helping right now by telling your story. You wrote a book, you told a story. You wrote a workbook, you told a story. You're doing this podcast, you're telling a story. And through storytelling, that's really how people recover. You know, what does your story look like today? And I like what you said about going through your workbook all those times, 8 times, that you have different iterations every time you go through it, or different revelations every time you go through it. That means your story changes, Keith, every time you go through it. It's kind of like you take crude oil. This is a terrible terrible illustration, maybe, but you take crude oil and then it's just rough crude. It's crude right out of the ground, and then you send it through the refining process. And what they do is they have these towers, and these fracking systems and all this stuff, and on these I forgot what to call the towers, but these towers, they have points at each area level of the tower, the highest being, say, the natural gas and stuff like that comes off the top. Your really fine stuff. Your crude usually drops, like your tar for the roads and stuff drops down the bottom. And along the way, you've got lots of levels and lots of things that siphon off. We could take the gunk of our life, like that crude oil,
Oh, yes.
and the way I see God working is he sends it through a refining fire, because that's what refinement is. You have to light a fire to it.
Sure.
And he siphons off just like that crude oil process in those plants there, he siphons off all these little things. And so out of them, we get stuff that we never could have gotten before. Gasoline, uh, this phone, your glasses, you know, all kinds of medicines, like aspirin and everything. All this stuff comes from that cruddy crude that you couldn't imagine and was rich with all those things, but it's through the refinement piece. So maybe God put you through the refining fire so that you can be who you are today, and you keep getting refined over and over again. I don't know. Maybe I'm hitting on nothing. Maybe I'm hitting on something. But what do you think?
Well, I was a tax accountant for 51 years before I retired.
Amazing.
And I I felt that as a calling. I thought that that was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And uh and towards the end of that, it became very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was hard to get anybody to work,
Mm-hmm.
any longer, right? Um, uh, I mean, I had some lovely, lovely employees. I don't, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the pandemic made things difficult for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then it was difficult to get, uh, really very difficult to get people to come back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And and so uh, it it was a lot of work for me to do by myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
that, became very stressful. And and so I thought, God, if it's a recalling, why am I having all this difficulty
Mm-hmm.
type of thing, right? And uh and then so I decided it's definitely time to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I retired, it's like it can't be over.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a purpose, and somewhere hidden in all this difficulty and issues, there has to be a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that purpose was the writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
And my church has decided in a meditation group that they're using the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been an interesting experience as well.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Well, it's about purpose, right? You know,
Right.
and what does scripture say? God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts,
Yeah.
you know, and we can't know what he knows or thinks about us or anything in particular. I knew a guy that said he thought his purpose was doing one thing, and then he had a dream or something, and he said God told him to start his own practice, and do something totally different. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, it's totally different than what he was thinking
Yeah.
initially.
Right.
Um, God does what he does. He has his own way. I mean, he allowed you to go through all of that stuff. And a lot of it was your decision. Hey, let me go to war. And God let you do it, brought you back out of it, and then, start a tax service. But this is interesting about your book. How many people might be saved from going through your material and your workbook? Because as a drug counselor, I'm here to tell you there's not a lot of material out there. You know, I mean, AA or NA. I mean, that's generally it. when it comes to recovery stuff, or going to a mission and trying to get better by that. But they, they don't have a structured path. They might use some tools and things like that, but when it comes to, I like your scriptures and how you structured your book. I'm going to buy your book myself. And before we get off here, let us know how can we get a hold of your book? Matter of fact, just tell us now, how do we get a hold of your book?
The simplest way you can get a hold of the book, or even you can reach out to me personally, is through my website,
Okay.
which is recoverybyfaith.com.
Okay, good, good. Recovery by faith. I'm going to refer my clients to you for that purpose. I'm going to add it to the reading list. I give my clients homework.
Uh-huh.
And especially if they have a substance abuse problem, I give them homework. I give all of them homework, really. But I think this is a great tool. And, God bless you for doing all of these other things. If you could think of anything you wanted to close out by telling people from all of your learnings, like the most important thing that you learned, what would that be?
When I had when I realized that I had a burnout, the different symptoms I had I was irritable, sleepless nights, uh, just terribly short tempered.
Mm,
And and the uh, I had my my purpose in life had gone haywire,
mm,
and and the um, and so I think what happens, and it took a terrible toll on my relationships.
mm,
And so I think that the uh, main thing I would want to say to anyone going through that type of trauma and these type of stressful difficulties is don't go alone.
mm, mm,
There's always somebody or some people there ready to help you if you ask.
mm,
Talk. Talk to someone else. Share your problem with someone else.
mm.
And and look to Jesus because he's certainly there to help.
Yeah, that's a great way to end this podcast. I think, you hit it on the head there. Yeah. Well, the Lord instructs us in his word to share each other's burdens. We're not created to carry them alone. That's absolutely sure. Too many times we forget about that. Or maybe just don't know it. But you have a wonderful testimony. I think that, this is going to help a lot of people. So I sure thank you, Mr. Cole, for being here today because you're speaking the truth, and you don't get a lot of veterans, talking about this kind of stuff, which I think is courageous. And so I want to, and also thank you for your service and your sacrifice that you did in 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 pursuing. I'm going to say it like this: justice and righteousness and all of that, because God has used you and is constantly using you even at this time in your life. And yeah, your purpose. God doesn't. I think retirement is just a term we made up or something. Because God doesn't say in His Word, oh, you can retire now. No, I don't think that's anywhere in Scripture. Uh, we made it up because He uses us until until we go back to the dust. I think we all need that purpose. We're purpose driven human beings, and we need that. I think God created all things with that in mind. You know, and I love the fact that you now find this purpose to do this type of work, and may God grant you peace and long life and happiness, and that you will see all of the fruits of your labor and realize a great many things, maybe things that you haven't even thought about um, ever or in many years, that God bring those things to the full for you and for yours. I thank you very much for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Well, thank you, Christopher. I've just absolutely really appreciate you and the work that you do.
thank
So
you.
thank you, and I pray for God's blessings on you and on your program.
Thank you, sir. Well, God bless you. This has been a blessing, truly a blessing. All right. Ooh.